Well, Amazon Global Selling has completed 10 years, 10 long years in India. And to talk more about its impact and the road ahead, we have the man himself. Srinidhi, thank you so much for joining us here on CNBC TV18. Let me begin by asking you, 10 years, it's a long road that you've taken since 2015 to 2025. And we've seen a lot of regulatory changes, global uncertainties and whatnot. How has the journey been so far?
So as you rightly point out, a decade, 2015 is when we started. And when we started, we had like 100 sellers. And when we actually started, true story, we had said that we're going to enable $10 billion in cumulative exports by 2025. We obviously did not have this worked out to the last dollar. But we had two convictions. One is that India has a lot to offer to the world. Right? India has deep export and manufacturing strengths. Two, we also knew the power that technology has in enabling businesses and making sellers succeed. So around 2022 is when we realized that we can actually double this pledge, right? And we said that we're going to do $20 billion by 2025, and I'm very happy to report that we've actually achieved the 20 billion pledge already, right, ahead of time. And we have around 2 lakh sellers now. And what is very interesting is that, and very enthusing for us, is that it is not a phenomena that is limited to metros, or it's not a phenomena that is limited to a particular set of towns or states. This is something that we are seeing across the country. In fact, we are present in 200 plus cities, right? And some of the smaller towns like Badohi, right, Tirupur, Karur, Panipat, Moradabad, and we are seeing a participation across all of these places. So what we are really enthused by is the secular participation across, and as we say at Amazon, we believe it is still day one, and we are very excited about the $80 billion pledge by 2030.
Okay, $80 billion by 2030. But Srinidhi, as we spoke, in the last 10 years and in the last 2 to 3 years, we have seen a lot of change when it comes to export particularly. The US tariffs are one of the biggest challenges right now for the Indian exporters. How is Amazon looking at it? Because if you go by the numbers, US is still the biggest market for exporters when it comes to the smallest of towns in India. How is Amazon sort of dealing with this situation, and what is the kind of assessment that you have done since the 50% tariffs came into play?
Tariffs is the realm of trade diplomacy, and I cannot specifically comment on tariffs. But I can tell you what we have been seeing over a period of time. I think the question to ask is, how well are we building capabilities, right? Because it is capabilities that compound over a period of time, right? And in Amazon language, we always ask ourselves, hey, is our flywheel, are we doing enough? Do we have enough controllable inputs to make our flywheel spinning faster, right? And if you look at it, I think that is something that has been happening over a period of time. We have been enabling sellers, in terms of technology. We have been making exports simpler for them, be it via our own logistics solution called Send, be it via our own FBA fulfillment center warehouses, be it via a lot of technology tools that we are providing to them, and now with GenAI coming in. So I think that in terms of enabling sellers, in terms of making this simpler for them, this is something that Amazon has been working on. Also, if you look at how the government has been looking at it, in 2023, e-commerce exports was included as a separate category of exports in our foreign trade policy, right? There is a lot of reforms, lot of ease in terms of compliance that we are seeing that is happening. For instance, RBI recently eased the EDPMS reconciliation rules, right? A lot of state governments are coming up with their own export promotion policies, in which e-commerce exports is an important part. So I think that in terms of our controllable inputs, in terms of the capabilities, I think we are in the right direction, and we believe that will compound over a period of time.
Okay. Of course, tariffs is something that happens on the national diplomacy front, but the impact on these sellers, when it comes to sellers that specifically sold to the United States, even with the usage of technology and the usage of your fulfillment centers, that kind of higher tariff could impact their profit margins. Have you seen an impact in the last few months?
See, I think profit margins, etc., are something that varies from seller to seller, and seller evaluates this over a period of time because it's a function of a lot of things that are even beyond tariffs. Their own supply chain costs, and so on and so forth. What I would like to say are two things. One is that we continue to see a lot of interest. For example, our seller base has grown by around 30% only in the last 1 year.
When it comes to
right?
US?
Across, right? And the second point is that we are also present across 18 plus marketplaces, via which sellers can actually reach out to 200 plus countries, right? So that's how I would look at it. That
Okay. So, but from your end and from what the communication that you have, or the ease or the help that you give to the exporters, is there an active idea of diversification that could probably help because of all of the situation that's going on?
Amazon Global Selling has always been truly global. We are present across 18 plus marketplaces where the Amazon portal is available, and via this, sellers can and were always able to reach out to 200 plus countries. So it's always been a worldwide phenomenon.
But in the way of numbers, have you seen that there is a more higher number of diversification to other markets like Latin America or Europe or any other places that you've seen in terms of data? Have you seen that sellers are by themselves diversifying now?
See, I think where a seller wants to start, is really a function of, their product, the product market fit, and their pricing, and so on and so forth, right? I think what we do, we are a platform that enables and gives sellers all of these choices, and as I said, over the last 10 years, that's what we've been doing, and access to 18 plus marketplaces across the world.
But from a perspective of Amazon's fulfillment centers, that is supposed to be the backbone of the help that you're supposed to give to the exporters, if exporters at this point in time, when they want to diversify across other geographies, how does that fulfillment center help them or push them in doing that?
Fulfillment centers are, present across, all of our, wherever, we have marketplaces, right? And, there are, as a product and a service, it's actually quite evolved, across marketplaces. So I think the, our standard mechanisms of, people storing their inventory in the foreign warehouse and, sort of send it, forget it, sort of an ease. I think, that was always provided across all marketplaces.
Okay. In terms of data and numbers, Srinidhi, there are textiles, there are toys, there is all sorts of things, tea, oil, olive oil, everything is being exported to the global markets. Is there an assessment of what is growing and what is not growing in terms of what is happening globally?
Yeah. So I would divide this into, 2 or 3 different categories. I think as I indicated before at the beginning of the conversation, India always had deep, export and manufacturing strengths, and particularly in the area of home textiles, and in the area of apparel, in the area of home decor, right? These are categories that continue to grow upwards of around 35% CAGR if you look at the last 10 years CAGR, right? So that is one area that we're doing very well in. The other categories, if you look at, India also has a very vibrant D2C ecosystem, right? And we see a lot of our D2C brands doing particularly well in the area of health and personal care and in beauty, right? These are categories, emerging categories that are now growing at a CAGR of almost 40+%, right? Educational STEM toys, right? That is another area that continues to grow again at around 40+%, right? Furniture, particularly carpets, area rugs, etc. That is another area that is growing at 40%, right? So it is a mix of traditional Indian export strengths, as also the innovations, that we are seeing from a lot of new age D2C brands.
Okay. You said, the exports have ballpark grown in the last 1 year or 2 years. But if we speak about the last 1 year, specifically in the last 6-7 months since the tariff wars have begun globally, what is is there a market that is standing out that, probably that is where the exports are going now because it is probably conducive for the exporters?
One, as I said, we offer choices across 18 plus marketplaces, right? In terms of a market that stands out, it is usually a function of, how vibrant is the retail market there, and, what is the GDP, and, so on and so forth. So yes, US continues to be dominant, right? But, our access to our sellers and brands is across 18 plus marketplaces.
So even after the tariff, we are seeing that US is still one of the biggest markets.
It is the biggest market.
Okay. Thank you so much, Srinidhi, for joining us and speaking to us about everything that global selling has done in the last 10 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for talking.
Thanks a lot.
For more news and updates, all you need to do is follow CNBC TV18 on all of our digital platforms.